While the horror genre is home to all kinds of niches such as body horror, gore, sci-fi, and supernatural tales of vampires or eldritch creatures, space horror holds a special place in our hearts. This genre expands beyond human ailments and worries and looks into the great horrors of the cosmos and otherworldly entities, and has been popularized by movies such as Alien, Starship Troopers, and more. Today, we've curated a list of the top 25 most horrifying space horror films, and we're ready to jump into it, but before we get too far ahead of ourselves, we do have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to the channel. It's a small click for you, but for us, it means a lot. Thank you. Let's begin. Alien, 1979. Directed by Ridley Scott, Alien was a 1979 sci-fi release that changed the space horror genre forever. It followed the crew of the Nostromo spaceship as they caught wind of a derelict spaceship's distress call and stepped on board to discover the remains of a large alien creature. The Nostromo's warrant officer, Ripley, also deciphered the signal coming from the spaceship wasn't a distress call, but rather a warning signal asking them to steer clear of it. However, she realizes that it's already too late to contact the rest of the crew and warn them, and the scene shifts to Officer Kane as he discovers a chamber full of hundreds of alien eggs. Moreover, things worsen for them as they tried to study the eggs, which soon hatched alien creatures known as xenomorphs. These entities were infamous for latching onto host bodies for nutrients before bursting out of their chests as adults and effectively killing them in the process. Sadly, most of the Nostromo's crew would not make it out alive. While the Nostromo spaceship also exploded, Ripley manages to be the only surviving member of the crew as she makes her way to a space shuttle and attempts to escape. Unfortunately, she realizes that one of the alien creatures has snuck on board the shuttle, and she puts on a pressure suit and tries to get rid of it by opening the exterior hatch. Even when the creature attempts to crawl back inside through the engine, Ripley activates the engines and incinerates it, thereby blasting it into space before broadcasting a distress call and returning to Earth in stasis alongside the crew's cat, Jones. Written by Dan O'Bannon, Alien was inspired by several sci-fi horror films such as The Thing from Another World, Forbidden Planet, and Planet of the Apes. While it was a huge hit, it went on to spawn an entire world of horrors, and the franchise soon expanded into more movies, video games, comics, and more. The xenomorphs are now immortalized as some of the most horrifying creatures to ever exist in pop culture, and on that note, let us explore the sequel to this film. Aliens, 1986. Directed by James Cameron, Aliens was released in 1986 as a sequel to the original Alien film and was set in the future after Ripley survived the xenomorph attack from the first film. While she emerges as the sole survivor from the Nostromo crew, the sequel followed her as she was rescued by Weyland-Yutani Corporation employees who refused to believe that there were alien eggs on the LV-426 moon. After they lost contact with this colony, Weyland-Yutani representatives such as Carter Burke and Colonial Marine Lieutenant Gorman asked Ripley to accompany them to the site, even though she was already quite traumatized by her past encounters. However, she agrees to join this mission on the condition that they exterminate these alien creatures, and they soon try to destroy the facehuggers and even get rid of the alien queen's ovipositor with the help of a nuclear attack. Even though the alien queen lunges at them and tries to attack Ripley, she defeats her with the help of an exosuit cargo loader and expels it into space while the rest of the crew safely returns to Earth. This sequel was a massive hit among fans and critics and is often considered even better than the original. Over time, Alien inspired a bunch of merchandise, such as video games and toys, and it was also one of the highest grossing films of 1986. Event Horizon, 1997. Directed by Paul Anderson, Event Horizon was a 1997 sci-fi horror film that starred Lawrence Fishburne, Kathleen Quinlan, Sam Neill, and Jolie Richardson in the lead roles. The film was set in the future, where an astronaut crew embarks on a rescue mission after the Event Horizon goes missing and reappears in Neptune's orbit. Taking place in 2047, the movie follows the rescue vessel Lewis and Clark's crew, including Captain Miller, Lieutenant Stark, Smith Cooper, DJ, Justin Peters, and Dr. William Weir, who had originally designed the Event Horizon. As they reach the event horizon, Dr. Weir reveals that the ship had an experimental gravity drive that folded space and time, and it might be possible that the crew had sent a distress signal due to some malfunction in this feature. As they reach the vessel, they are horrified to find out that the crew has been massacred, and they even find a video log of the crew slowly experiencing hallucinations and descending into insanity. It's not long before the rescue team starts experiencing the same effects, while Weir explains that the ship's drive has opened a gateway to a hellish realm. Moreover, Weir falls victim to the evil presence that has lurked out of this realm, and the rest of the film follows the rescue team's efforts to make it out alive without descending into insanity. Pitch Black, 2000. Starring Vin Diesel and Cole Hauser in lead roles, this 2000 sci-fi horror, titled Pitch Black, followed a criminal named Riddick as he was transported to a prison in the Hunter-Gratzner spacecraft. However, things go awry when micrometeoroids rupture the ship's hull and wreak havoc, leaving them with no option but to crash land on a nearby planet. Amidst this chaos, Riddick manages to make a swift escape while the rest of the survivors fight against the aggressive, photosensitive creatures that are native to this planet and figure out a way out. Finally, they came across Riddick and strike a deal to let him walk free if he helps him find a way to escape the planet. As they work together, they realize that Riddick has surgically modified eyes that enhance his vision, but also make him sensitive to light, and they rely on him to lead the way through the darkness. After a lot of chaos, the crew fights off several predatory creatures and even discovers bioluminescent worms that provide brightness in the pitch-dark environment. As they finally reach their escape vehicle, the ship's pilot, Fry, reasons with Riddick and asks him to wait for the rest of the crew to arrive, but he dismisses the idea and offers to take her along instead. Unfortunately, Fry soon falls victim to a predatory attack, and Riddick then finds himself on the rescue craft with a teenage boy named Jack. Sunshine, 2007. Starring an ensemble cast including Cillian Murphy, Chris Evans, Michelle Yeoh, and Rose Byrne, Sunshine was a 2007 sci-fi psychological thriller directed by Danny Boyle. The film was set in the year 2057 when a bunch of astronauts on board the Icarus II were sent on a mission to reignite the dying sun. However, things don't seem to be as simple as that, and they soon hear a distress call from Icarus I when they pass by Mercury. While this ship had been lost over 7 years ago, Kappa convinces Captain Canada to change their course and look into it, but Trey forgets to realign the shields while doing so. As they realize this could potentially damage the reflective panels and destroy the ship, their mission took a crucial turn as they dropped all their immediate objectives to fix their ship's alignment. However, the reflected light starts burning out their oxygen reserves when they reach Icarus I and learn that the ship's mainframe has been sabotaged. They also found the original crew's charred bodies after they had died due to sun exposure, while Icarus II's crew struggled to find a way to reach the sun and reignite it despite running low on oxygen. In the meantime, Trey commits suicide, and the surviving 4 members make their way to the sun, only to realize that Pinbacker from the original crew has survived and snuck on board the Icarus II. Pinbacker declared that the past 7 years taught him that humanity must be sent to heaven, and he tries his best to sabotage their mission while the rest of the crew puts their best foot forward in their mission to restore sunlight in a gripping finale. Pandorum, 2009. Directed by Christian Alvard, Pandorum was a 2009 film that followed an interstellar arc that took about 60,000 humans on a trip to colonize the planet of Tanis. In fact, the film's title was a slang word for the psychosis experienced by people in deep space, which led to symptoms such as paranoia, delirium, and nosebleeds. After Earth became grossly overpopulated, the Elysium was designed to take some humans to Tanis so that they could colonize it, and the passengers were placed in hypersleep for about 8 years. After a long adventure, the ship received a message from Earth stating that there was nothing to return for and that the Elysium's passengers were all that was left of humanity. Soon enough, 2 members of the crew, Bauer and Peyton, woke up from their hypersleep and experienced symptoms such as amnesia and psychosis. This seems to be only the start of their symptoms, and the ship also starts experiencing power surges due to an unstable nuclear reactor. As the film progresses, the crew deals with their hallucinations and even stumbles upon cannibalistic humanoids as their Pandorum worsens with each passing moment. After many fights and deaths on board the Elysium, they finally spot bioluminescent oceans through the windows and realize that they had safely reached Tanis quite some time ago. Ash, 2025. Directed by Flying Lotus and written by Johnny Remler, Ash was a recent sci-fi horror film that starred Isa Gonzalez, Aaron Paul, and Iko Uwais in lead roles. The story follows a cosmonaut named Rhea who regains consciousness on a faraway planet and realizes that her entire space station's crew has been massacred. Moreover, she seems to be suffering from amnesia and has a hard time gathering memories of her partners or their missions in general. While Rhea's paranoia gets the best of her, she struggles with trusting those around her and finds herself at a loss when a man allegedly reaches the space station and claims that he's been sent to rescue her. The entire film was shot inside a former door manufacturing plant in New Zealand and garnered many positive reviews among fans and critics alike. Life, 2017. Starring Jake Gyllenhaal, Rebecca Ferguson, and Ryan Reynolds in the lead roles, Life follows a 6-member crew of the International Space Station where they discover the first extraterrestrial life on Mars. Soon enough, this dormant cell grows into a multi-celled organism called Calvin, and the crew observes it as it turns into a hostile creature that attacks them and even forces itself down engineer Rory Adams' throat. While the crew attempts to inform Earth, they realize that their communication system has shut down, and Kat sacrifices herself to keep Calvin away from the station. As the film progresses, this hostile life form seems intent on re-entering the station and even wreaks havoc on a rescue Soyuz spacecraft that would have pushed the creature farther away from Earth. While the system's tech Sho sacrifices herself in an attempt to launch Calvin into space, David and Miranda also try their best to trap this creature in an escape pod. They planned on containing Calvin in the pod and launching it into deep space, and David volunteered to drive this pod while Miranda escaped to Earth. However, both these pods end up crashing into the Soyuz craft's debris, and David's pod lands in the South Pacific Ocean in an unfortunate turn of events. In a horrifying finale, Miranda's out-of-control pod launches into space, and she screams in terror as Calvin attacks David in the pod. To make things worse, a bunch of fishermen stumble upon David's pod and even open the hatch door, unaware that they might end up unleashing Calvin upon the Earth's population as the film ends. Starship Troopers, 1997. Set in the 23rd century, Starship Troopers was a 1997 sci-fi film that was a cross between the action and horror genres. It was directed by Paul Verhoeven, and it followed a teenager named Johnny Rico who served in the United Citizen Federation's military along with his friends. While this federation was essentially an Earth-based world government, they ended up in a tiff against a highly evolved alien species known as the Arachnids. While Johnny enlists in the military as a mobile infantryman in order to stay close to his girlfriend, he doesn't realize that he might just have to get into the thick of things and fight against these creatures. His life also takes a turn when his girlfriend breaks up with him around the same time that he gets promoted, but he soon makes a mistake that results in one of his comrades' deaths. Rico ends up resigning from the military, but the Arachnids take over Earth by this point and even destroy Buenos Aires. When Johnny learns that his parents had also died in this attack, Rico joins the Federation's invasion force as they attack the Arachnids' home planet of Klendathu and eventually becomes a part of an elite unit known as the Roughnecks. The rest of the plot follows Rico's Roughnecks' attempts to get rid of the Arachnids with a miniature nuclear bomb, and they eventually capture an important Arachnid leader, a brain bug. As time passes, Rico establishes himself in the military and continues to lead his troops into many such futuristic battles. Prometheus, 2012. Directed by Ridley Scott, Prometheus was a 2012 film that served as a prequel to the events of Alien. The plot was set in the late 21st century, wherein the crew of the Prometheus spaceship follows a star map to discover the origins of humanity. While the Wayland Corporation funds this project, archaeologists Elizabeth Shaw and Charlie Holloway embark on a journey to the distant moon of LV-223, along with crew members such as Milburn and Fifield. They also find assistance in the form of an android named David, and they soon arrive at their destination and find a giant monolithic statue. As they investigate it, the crew members find the remains of an extinct species while David picks up a cylindrical vase with black liquid oozing out of it. While most of the crew senses that something is quite eerie about this setting, Shaw ends up getting pregnant with a squid-like entity while other crew members are also subjected to strange alien attacks. In fact, Byfield soon mutates into a monstrous entity and even returns to the spaceship to attack the others when they realize that this moon was actually an engineer military base. It seemed like they were developing a biological weapon when things went wrong, which resulted in the creation of these alien entities, who eventually grew to be xenomorphs and laid down the foundation of the Alien franchise. Thankfully, Shaw manages to launch an engineer spacecraft and leave LV-223 behind, but the movie ends with a glimpse of an alien creature bursting out of a dead engineer's chest, hinting that their crisis is far from over. High Life, 2018. Starring Robert Pattinson and Juliette Binoche in lead roles, High Life follows a bunch of criminals who find themselves on a mission to extract alternative energy from a black hole. As it turns out, these criminals were slated for death sentences when a scientist named Dibbs came up with the idea of sending them on experimental science expeditions. While Dibbs was largely fixated on creating a child in space through artificial insemination, she directed her energy towards sending these criminals towards the black hole while also fitting a device known as the box on the ship. Most crew members used this place to pleasure themselves, while one prisoner named Electra even gave birth on the ship. As their journey progresses, a prisoner named Ettore tries to assault Boise, while the others intervene and end up stabbing him to death. Dibbs then decides to increase the prisoner's sedative dosages to ensure that they're subdued, but in a horrific turn of events, she ends up assaulting Monte while he was sedated. She even injects his sperm into Boise to create a healthy child, and the movie takes a chaotic turn as they approach the black hole. As more and more of these criminals turn on each other and even attack Dibbs, she ejects herself into space, while Monte remains to be the sole survivor of the incident. In her last moments, Dibbs informs him that he's the father of Boise's child, and the young man then struggles in space as he also does his best to raise his child while making repairs to the ship to return to Earth safely. Unfortunately, this doesn't seem possible, and the movie ends with a sequence where Monte walks into a yellow light source with his child and disappears. It, The Terror from Beyond Space, 1958. It, The Terror from Beyond Space is inarguably a cult classic in the sci-fi horror genre. The film stars Marshall Thompson, Shirley Patterson, and Kim Spaulding in lead roles, and focuses on a rescue team as they locate the sole surviving member of the Challenge 141 spaceship. Colonel Edward Carruthers claimed that the rest of the crew was killed by a hostile humanoid lifeform on the Red Planet, while the rescue team believed that he might be responsible for all of their murders. As they look into the matter, the movie takes us through a series of events that gives us some clarity on the original crew's deaths at the hands of a hostile creature. Moreover, there seems to be no foolproof way to get rid of it, and the crew tries everything from hand grenades to gas grenades and even electrocution and nuclear attacks to kill it. While this terrorizing entity manages to survive, Carruthers finally comes up with a plan to open the command deck's hull and expose the creature directly to the vacuum of space. The plan works as they experience a violent decompression while the entity gets stuck through the ship's final hatch and finally suffocates and expires. As they return to Earth, the rescue ship is horrified by the events they've witnessed, and their project director declares that they can no longer explore the Red Planet as it's synonymous with death. Life Force, 1985. Directed by Tobe Hooper, Life Force was a 1985 British sci-fi horror that explores a humanoid trio that lands on Earth in a state of suspended animation. When a European space shuttle named Churchill comes across a spaceship in the depths of Halley's Comet, the crew decide to explore it in detail. As they stumbled upon several desiccated bat-like creatures, they were especially fascinated by 3 naked humanoid bodies that had been stored in suspended animation in glass containers. Soon enough, Churchill's crew decided to bring one bat alien and the 3 humanoids back to Earth, but things went downhill when their ship lost contact with mission control. When they finally discovered the spaceship during a rescue mission, they realized that the entire crew is dead and take the humanoid bodies to the European Space Research Center in London. As the film progresses, these humanoid aliens wake up and start attacking the guards at the research center before breaking free. Moreover, they seem to have special powers, and the guards that had died at their hands soon return to life and gain the ability to drain others' life force. In the meantime, it's revealed that Carlson survived the Churchill crash in an escape pod, and he returns to the research center to recount the incidents that had taken place on board the vessel. As it turns out, he had felt compelled to share his life force with one of the humanoids, which then resulted in the rest of the crew's death. In the meantime, these humanoids start shapeshifting to blend in with humans and infect the population, while Carlson teams up with other researchers to bring an end to their tyranny and kill them with an ancient weapon made of leaded iron. Jason X, 2001. Released as the 10th installment of the Friday the 13th franchise, this film introduced Jason as a cryogenically frozen entity who wakes up from his deep slumber after 445 years. As he snaps back into reality, he realizes that he's on a spaceship in the year 2455, and we learn that the United States government had held him for quite some time at the Crystal Lake Research Facility in 2008. After several failed attempts to murder him, scientist Rowan LaFontaine suggested that they could place him in cryogenic stasis despite all his protests. Several years down the line, humanity settled on a new planet called Earth-2, and the movie took an interesting turn as a bunch of students traveled to Earth-1 on a field trip with Professor Brandon Lowe. As they arrive at the abandoned research facility, they find Jason's frozen body and decide to bring him on board their spaceship. While one of the students is ordered to dissect his body, they don't register the dangers of dabbling with a supernatural entity and soon end up in a clash that results in an explosion. While they send out a distress call, Jason ends up at a medical station where he's rebuilt as a cyborg with far more strength and agility than all of his past versions. Apollo 18, 2011. Known as one of the best found-footage sci-fi horror films, Apollo 18's premise was that the cancelled Apollo mission did land on the moon, but it never returned. The film suggests that the crew was looped in for a secret mission to place an early warning detector on the moon in order to get wind of USSR attacks. While Commander Walker, Captain Anderson, and Lieutenant Gray are secretly launched into space, they plant the detector and pick up some rock samples from the moon. They admit that something about these rocks is strange, and it's not long before Anderson discovers some footprints that lead them to a functional Soviet LK lander. They also find a dead cosmonaut and explore further when they notice that the flag they had planted has gone missing. Soon enough, they find extraterrestrial life, and Walker even ends up getting infected to the point where he starts feeling paranoid and contentious. Their mission finally results in Walker getting abducted by these alien creatures, while Anderson runs away to the Soviet LK and uses its communication systems to contact USSR mission control. However, the Department of Defense tells him that he cannot return to Earth since he might also be infected, and the crew panics and ends up crashing both their spacecraft as well as the Soviet LK lander. An official statement declares that these astronauts were killed in jet accidents that left their bodies unrecoverable, and the mission's true purpose remains a well-kept secret. The Last Days on Mars, 2013. Directed by Ruairi Robinson, The Last Days on Mars was set on the Tantalus Base outpost in the 2040s, wherein an 8-person crew researched the planet for about 6 months. With just 19 hours left for their mission to complete, the crew makes successful discoveries regarding life on Mars while they wait for the Aurora spacecraft to travel from Earth and bring them back. However, things take an unfortunate turn when one of the scientists, named Petrovic, stumbles into a sinkhole while collecting a soil sample. As Captain Brunel and crew member Dalby attempt to retrieve his body, Vincent Campbell tries to explore the sinkhole when he comes across a bacterial organism in its fissure. In no time, Dalby and Petrovic get infected by this organism and turn into aggressive zombie-like creatures who try to attack the rest of the crew. While Brunel is fatally injured, he somehow revives himself and suffers from a whole new wave of symptoms, including memory loss and aggression. While Campbell, Irvin, and Lane remain the only survivors, the rest of the movie follows them as they rush to safety and bide their time until the Aurora arrives to take them back to Earth. However, things don't seem to be as straightforward as they had hoped, and Petrovic manages to infect Irwin, which then leaves Campbell with no option but to kill him. While a drop of Irwin's blood lands on Campbell's face, he reconsiders whether he must get on the ship and endanger others before finally deciding to float alone in space by the end of the film. Screamers, 1995. Starring Peter Weller, Roy Dupuis, and Jennifer Rubin in lead roles, Screamers was a 1995 sci-fi horror that explored themes such as societal conflict, illusions, and machines betraying their creators. The film was set in the year 2078 on the toxic wasteland planet of Sirius 6b, which used to be a major mining hub back in the day. However, a war between the New Economic Bloc Mining Company and a rebel group known as the Alliance has turned the planet into a deteriorating wasteland, especially after the miners discovered that their mining had resulted in the release of several toxic gases. As they went on strike, the New Economic Bloc Company hired mercenaries to break the strike, while the Alliance retaliated by creating artificially intelligent machines known as autonomous mobile swords to fight back. While both parties wreaked a lot of havoc, top officials decided their only solution was a truce when it was revealed that the Alliance had created a whole new species of monsters known as Screamers. These monstrous entities seem to have taken over the entire planet, and the movie ends on a chaotic note as top Alliance officers such as Joe Hendrickson realize that their only way out is through emergency escape shuttles. Unfortunately, Hendrickson underestimates the extent to which these Screamers have evolved, and he unknowingly gets into a shuttle with one of them. unaware of the kind of chaos he might have to face as soon as he arrives on Earth. Sputnik, 2020. Directed by Igor Abramenko, Sputnik starred Oksana Akinshina as a young doctor who works with the Soviet military to treat a cosmonaut. This Russian sci-fi horror follows Dr. Tatiana Klimova as she examines cosmonaut Konstantin Veshniakov after his spacecraft crashes in Kazakhstan after an orbital research mission during the Cold War. Veshniakov claims that they crashed after they saw something moving outside of their ship, and while Dr. Klimova is kept in the dark regarding his circumstances, it doesn't take her long to figure out that he brought back an extraterrestrial life form inside his body. Moreover, Veshniakov seems unaware of the entity that has latched onto him, as it only emerges at night when the host is asleep. As the film progresses, Colonel Semiradov tasks Dr. Klimova with extracting this creature from the cosmonaut's body and severing their symbiotic relationship. She then uses a bunch of tactics to stress him out and scare the creature into leaving, before finally taking him for a run around the facility to tell him the truth about the parasitic creature inside him. They evade all surveillance and make plans to escape the facility, but are soon ambushed by Colonel Semiradov, who refuses to let the creature get away so easily. As the film ends, Dr. Klimova realizes that even Veshniakov cannot survive without the creature, and things end on a horrific note as he claims his own life to destroy the entity. This also raises the question of Veshniakov's son's survival, but it is revealed that Dr. Klimova adopts him and takes care of him after his father's death. Europa Report, 2013. Released as a found footage film, Europa Report was a 2013 sci-fi horror that followed the first ever crewed mission to Europa, one of the 4 Galilean moons of Jupiter. As Dr. Samantha Under narrates the story, we learn that 6 astronauts embarked on this privately funded research mission and lost all communication with mission control due to a solar storm. While the crew members attempt to perform an extravehicular activity to repair the system, one of them ends up getting infected with hydrazine and then sacrifices himself before he contaminates the rest of the crew. The rest of the members continue their journey and finally enter Europa's orbit after 20 months, but things worsen for them as they come in contact with a unicellular organism upon landing. They record it and decide to report it back to Earth once they are back, but once again their ship's lander is damaged and the engine starts to malfunction. After another member ends up dying during repairs, a third crew member falls to his death after a piercing blue light flashes at him. With barely any surviving members left, they do their best to repair and re-establish communication with Earth, but the bioluminescent organism strikes them all down. Even though they don't survive the mission, they manage to upload the footage and send it back to mission control, and all this found footage helps confirm the existence of life on Europa in the epilogue. The Cloverfield Paradox, 2018. Directed by Julius Ona, The Cloverfield Paradox is a 2018 sci-fi horror that follows an international team of astronauts stuck on the Cloverfield space station. During a global energy crisis, Earth decided to test the Shepard particle accelerator aboard this space station that can seemingly provide the planet with infinite energy. While the crew manages to activate the Shepard after almost 2 years of attempting to work with it, it creates a stable beam that overloads and creates a power surge. Unfortunately, the surge causes Earth to vanish, and the crew then finds themselves at a loss as they start experiencing strange symptoms to the point where one of them even dies. Moreover, their gyroscope goes missing, and one of the crew members' arms is pulled into a wall and severed. The arm then floats on its own and asks them to cut their dead crew member's body open, and they follow the instructions to find the gyroscope inside. This helps them locate Earth again, and they try to restore communications when they realize that the accelerator activated the Cloverfield Paradox that transported them into an alternate universe. The film then follows their attempts to reactivate the Shepard and then return to their own universe at any cost, even if it meant they had to fight a giant monster that had been terrorizing Earth. Alien 3, 1992. Fans of the Alien franchise were thrilled upon the release of Alien 3, the third installment in this franchise. It was set in the aftermath of the Sulaco crew's return after their mission to exterminate alien creatures on LV-426. However, it just so happened that one of the eggs had escaped on board the Sulaco, and it soon hatched and released a facehugger on the ship while the crew was in cryonic stasis. The ship ended up crash landing on a correctional facility known as Fiorina, or Fury 161, and Ripley soon regained consciousness to find that she was the sole survivor of the incident. While the prison's medical officer, Clemens, informed her about the crew members' deaths, Ripley also learned that the facehugger was now roaming freely in this correctional facility. She then embarks on a mission to track it down and get rid of it, but her troubles are far from over as she faces resistance and harassment from the prison inmates. While she waits for the Weyland-Yutani Corporation to send a rescue ship, the alien corners Ripley in the prison infirmary after killing Clemens in front of her eyes. However, the alien spares Ripley for some mysterious reason, and we eventually learn that an alien queen embryo was growing inside her. She then realized that Weyland-Yutani had plans to capture this alien embryo and turn it into a biological weapon, but the film ends in a striking finale as she claims her own life by walking into a furnace while the embryo erupts from inside her. Alien Resurrection, 1997. After Ripley's bold decision to sacrifice herself before the Weyland-Yutani Corporation could get their hands on the alien embryo growing within her, Alien Resurrection marked her return around 200 years after the events of Alien 3. As it turns out, Ellen Ripley was cloned, and the alien queen was surgically extracted from her body as a part of the United Systems military's plans to breed these creatures. They hired a team of mercenaries to abduct human hosts that would play a key role in breeding more alien creatures on board the research spaceship USM Auriga. However, their plans are thwarted when the aliens escape their holding cells and wreak havoc on board the ship, while Ripley teams up with the mercenaries to destroy the spaceship before it can reach Earth. While the ship explodes while colliding with Earth, one of the mercenaries wonders what their next move should be, while Ripley declares that she also feels like a stranger with no future plans on Earth. While there were plans to release more movies as a part of the franchise, Alien Resurrection was the final movie installment until the release of the crossover series Alien vs. Predator and the prequel series that began with Prometheus. This film was undeniably quite a hit, and there were follow-up plans for Alien 5 to be set on Earth until Sigourney Weaver, the actress who played Ellen Ripley, declared that she wasn't interested in the script and that she would consider reprising the role if she liked any future plots. Supernova, 2000. Directed by Walter Hill, Supernova was a 2000 sci-fi horror film that documented the search and rescue patrol missions of the medical ship Nightingale 229. While exploring deep space in the early 22nd century, the ship's 6 crew members, including A.J. Marley, Nick Van Zandt, Kayla Evers, Jerzy Penalosa, Danica Lund, and Benjamin Sotomayor, came across a distress signal from the distant moon Titan 37. Even though it was about 3,000 light-years away, they decided to jump across dimensions to look into the distress call, even if Captain Marley suffered fatal injuries. They soon arrived on Titan 37, even if the moon's high gravity field meant that they would be incinerated in just 17 hours, and looked into the distress signal to find a young man. The man turns out to be Carl Larson, one of Kayla's former abusive partners, who had somehow gained superhuman abilities after coming across an alien artifact. While he seems to be on a mission to murder the entire crew of Nightingale 229 except Kayla, Nick somehow survives and helps Kayla get rid of Carl with the help of some explosives. While they get rid of this threat, Kayla and Nick find themselves running out of time to escape Titan 37 before they're incinerated, and the movie ends on a nail-biting note as they race against time to make it out alive. While they succeed, they have no option but to travel in the same pod, and their struggles seem to be far from over as their genetics undergo significant changes during the dimensional jump, which even results in Kayla's pregnancy. Infini, 2015. Set in the early 23rd century, Infini was a 2015 Australian sci-fi film that starred Daniel McPherson, Luke Hemsworth, and Grace Huang in lead roles. The film focused on an emergency at the mining station of OI Infini, and a search and rescue team was soon sent to look into the matter through a form of teleportation known as slipstream. While the team could travel back and forth in less than a minute, they experienced severe time dilation, and things went awry after Whit Carmichael from the West Coast Search and Rescue Team used an illegal teleporter to travel to Infini. He even went so far as to activate a lethal lockdown to contain the crisis, while the East Coast Search and Rescue Team was tasked with the responsibility of recovering Whit and bringing him back safely. As the plot progresses, Whit ends up suffering from a severe infection after coming in contact with a primordial ooze that originated from alien organic material. While this infection has a severe impact on his sanity, he somehow manages to break free from its effects and even helps other crew members snap out of it. Even though they spent most of their time on Infini trying to kill each other under the ooze's influence, they decide to keep their story simple as they teleport back to Earth without any ailments. Moontrap, 1989. Directed by Robert Dyke, Moontrap was a 1989 sci-fi horror that featured Walter Koenig and Bruce Campbell as modern-day astronauts. The film starts in 1969 as a robotic eye follows the Apollo 11 mission before jumping around 20 years into the future as the space shuttle Camelot stumbles upon a derelict spaceship. When Colonel Jason Grant investigates the spaceship, he finds a pod and a mummified human corpse and soon brings it to Earth, where this pod comes to life. It then starts constructing an alien body with the help of the mummified corpse before killing one of the security guards. Colonel Grant then jumps into action and kills it with a shotgun blast. Grant then teams up with astronaut Ray Tanner to embark on a search and destroy mission, and they travel to the moon to find the remains of an ancient human civilization. They also stumble upon killer cyborgs known as the Callium, and the rest of the movie follows their attempts to get rid of these cyborgs and protect humanity from their attacks. Grant and Tanner also team up with a woman named Mira to prevent these cyborgs from reaching Earth by blowing up their ship, but the movie ends on a terrifying note as one of these Callium pods survives the explosion and starts building a new body on Earth. While Grant and Mira settle down together in the aftermath of this incident, Grant even assures NASA officials that there's no chance that the Callium would have survived the explosion, unaware of the fact that one of these ruthless cyborgs had managed to build itself a new body on Earth. Marvelous verdict! And with that, we've explored the top 25 most horrifying space horror films, ranging from the classic Alien franchise to other underrated works such as Screamers or the Cloverfield Paradox. From terrorizing aliens to tales of humans surviving in space, we hope this list had a few recommendations for every space horror niche, and please do share your favorite picks in the comments down below. We'd love to hear them, and maybe we'll even do a full feature on those movies. If you liked our content, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to us if you haven't already. Otherwise, thanks for watching, stay safe out there, and have a marvelous day.